classical issue, right? The bugs think these are real places. The bugs are going to the beach, they're going to the grass. This is the great test of illusionism.
Well, when I shoot these from the sets and models, I'll set it up and have some sense of what I want it to look like. Some I'll sketch before, but some I won't. And a lot of it with the sets and models is playing with the physical materials and playing with, okay, let's see if the foreground is turf, what if the midground was felt, and what about this sky? So rather than fabric for sky, what if I put this is that painting, you know? What if I put that there? And what if this water, that's this water before it was all glued together? And, you know, a stick, and what happens if, and, you know, I'll ask somebody in my family to hold this piece, or I'll prop something up, and their students have asked me, can we see one of your models? And I have to laugh because they exist for 10 seconds, you know, 10 minutes, and then it all falls apart. But what will surprise me is the shot of light that, I knew light was coming in from the right, but I didn't realize it was making this, you know, that's sort of a romantic landscape idea there, the light from the heavens and stuff, and the way that this reflects differently that side to that side, and the gap here where what you already know is fake materials, but the gap just becomes ever more evident there. What happens with depth of field and focus, so that's, you know, a lot of that's controlled by me, but a lot of it is a surprise, just how it can impact you emotionally, like how little you are in such a big space, and how the scale of you and your feeling as a viewer can be so shifted and surprising even while you know it's fake. So.
Yeah, that's, I mean, one of the great things about this work is the way that you register it as fake, you see what the materials are, and yet it continues to have the effect in some ways that it would have were it not fake, right? And so that's, I find that, you know, kind of endlessly fascinating. I can never stop being surprised that the fakeness doesn't interfere with that, you know, at some level that emotional
you can hold
resonance.
both those things.
Yeah, exactly. And that you almost can't help yourself, right? I mean, there's almost, even if you desire for your cognitive understanding of what it is to, like, interfere with that, oh my gosh, look at that beautiful seascape. It won't, it doesn't, at least for me, it doesn't happen. I'm still working. So, what about the porthole?
Well, the porthole.
Yeah, how open should the door be, for one thing?
We've been really debating that for hours.
You're wearing white gloves.
I know. This is kind of a riff on, you know, this is another kind of art history joke here. So the idea of the Renaissance window, that you make an image and the viewer can move effortlessly into this image as though they're looking through a window at something real. So, you know, we have a window here and a landscape beyond, and then the landscape in some ways and from some distances looks pretty illusionistic, but then when you get up close you can see the scratches, and you can see the materials, and you can see that it was made, and you can see that it's just stripes of paint on paper, which is what any painting is, right? It's just paint on paper, but I think playing with the real object and the, again, kind of emphatically flat materials, forefronted landscape, so it's just kind of a funny little joke to me.
But did you have the idea before you got the porthole, or did you come across the porthole and then have the idea?
I had the porthole for a long time, and I knew it would have a seascape in it, and I finally executed it.
Right. Should we open it up? Should we open it up to questions?
I have a question. Yeah. What I'm finding interesting is how you are using narrative in the pictures also to talk about the idea of the fake. That illusionistic pictures often are set up so that we can become aware of what the narrative is, but with what you have here, I mean, especially that kind of work, that's not narrative. So it's really interesting to me that you bring that as part of the conversation here.
Lack of narrative?
Well, that there's narrative, and you're talking about narrative, you know, specifically, but through the idea of the fakery. The narratives are all fake anyway.
Like this piece here, the thought for a while about putting that in the front window, but we decided to create this platform. And as you walk into the gallery, the perspective looks somewhat convincing on the pool, and then as we walk up here, we see it's all just weird angles, kind of cobbled together, that totally breaks down as an illusion of a pool in a ground plane. So, and the clouds move through, but fake clouds in a jittery.
Yeah, I love the halting way that they go across. Yeah, that's one of the great things about that piece.
I know. Well, John Stomberg, I'll quote him, he's not here, but he said, you know, your models are so great, but they're also so crappy. So, you know, that's part of the idea.
Yeah.
You're not looking at a pristine model. It's not a perfect, you know, you see the guys who make the railroad models who are just every single little original ballast tie of the railroad, you know, it's got to be accurate, and that's not interesting.
Is the landscape a kind of vehicle for your explorations, or are you wedded to landscape in a different way? Is it a motivating? I mean, could this not ever be figurative exploration?
I don't think it could be figurative.
My question is, how committed are you or motivated are you by landscape?
I just love space, and I just love space, and everything I've ever done seems to be about space versus flatness. And you know, way back, I was investigating that thought and abstraction versus illusion, and some of those ideas just really are landscape's the place for me to explore that. And then I also just find it really rich with imagery and ideas and sort of emotive possibilities and romance and history, and you know, these look like fairy tales to me. You know, a fairy tale has just happened, maybe yesterday, maybe the day before, but I just find it rich.
Well, that, to play off both the question and what you just said, it seems to me that the emptiness of the landscapes, which you just registered now as a kind of aftermath, like a fairy tale did take place and now everyone's gone home and this is what we have left. And then, but that's sort of in tension with what seems to me is the extraordinary invitation into these images that we have. For the most part, you know, Roland Barthes said of photographs that he was only interested in landscape photographs when he felt like he could live there. Like he wanted to be in the image. And I feel like your images, by and large, really invite us in. They don't block us. There's a channeling of sight. There's that invitation to go in, and that kind of imaginative engagement. And I sometimes think that they do kind of waver between that come into this and this kind of melancholic, they're all gone now. And does that, I mean, is that just my emotional resonance, or do you...
Well, the stuff I used to make was really gloomy.
Yeah, yeah.
Really gloomy, really dark, really empty, really dismal. So these are happy as heck.
Yeah, no, they are more cheerful.
But yeah, it's funny to see that. I don't know whether I just felt I really had to be serious when I was young, or what. But my older work is so dark and heavy.
Well, it's hard making a cheerful etching. Actually, some people have done it, but it's not easy. So it might have been partly your medium. Yeah? Cheerful photographs. That's an easier thing to do. Any other questions?
I have questions,
Laura. The music. Can you tell us why you chose the music to go with this?
The music was actually part of the original idea, and I got Richard to do the music. So I wanted to have those 3 reels running simultaneously and have music that also would not be structured to coincide perfectly, but instead would kind of randomize and overlap. So he created 3 tracks that have music that's that plays off each other, will combine in new ways, and we really talked a lot about whether it would be okay, let's do it on a 3-beat or on a 6, you know, and we decided not to. So one track is much more structured and the others are more atmospheric, but that was part of the initial idea, was to have the music and to create you know, sound landscape at the same time.
And who's performing it?
Richard Scullin.
then so the way that the images appear on the video is not all calculated. It's just
No,
you never know what
those are different
you're gonna
length,
get.
different length reels that overlap. You know, so this one's 3 minutes, this one's 2 minutes, so they repeat
So you
differently.
get different
Yeah.
pictures, contrasting. I don't have an answer to your big question about how do you form a practice. You're talking about aftermodernism, but I thought when I spoke to you the other day that what you were doing, so many different things with the smaller pieces. I don't like technology, not technology. Scanning this, drawing on it, doing this. Yeah, that's maybe is really interesting. That's what so many artists do. It's like transform it, scan it, and then make something else, and then transform it again. And you could go.
Yeah,
You can just keep
we have
going.
so many tools.
Yeah.
There's so many things available in terms of references in art history, and there are also so many tools to work with and play with and try to combine and not. And so, yeah, I think it's just what you have available,
Yeah,
and right
yeah.
now we have so much.
But you just used it, not like, oh, can I? You didn't like look for permission. You're like, I'm scanning this, drawing it all over.
Well,
and
I
making
didn't.
it. So you can't tell. Again, you can't tell what's scanned, what's.
Well, it's
not.
interesting that you say look for permission because for a while I was making these things and I was like, well, these are just, I don't know what these are. These are just tests, or this is just a sketch, or this is just a study. And finally I realized, well, it is what it is, and I don't really know what to call it. It's a print, overprinted on a print, and then drawn on.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know like what I would write if I had to write down the medium, but you know, why not? We can do that, can't we? Right?
Yeah. So it's like it could be infinitely evolving.
Yeah.
It's like Johnson Rush.
The bird. So I know you talked a little bit about the bird as
Oh,
opposed
yeah.
to the human. And I've been watching Melanie, print out ravens for the last like 2.5
Right.
weeks. But why the bird is the medium? Is there anything that goes beyond other than it's than
I don't
a
even
person?
like birds. I don't know. That's why they're fake.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of birds. I mean, it's not just the.
I've got a lot of birds. Yeah, I got a studio full of birds. I can't remember when I came up with or why I came up with the idea of the bird, and I think part of it was I was sick of the little man, so I thought I'll try a bird, and I like the idea that it's kind of fake and kind of not fake, and you can kind of maybe pass it off as real. And I also needed something red in this picture I was making. So I don't know. The birds, they just they have proved fruitful, and for a while I set them aside. But then, this spring I was making more bird pictures. I don't know what to say about the birds.
Well, one thing I love about it is that birds have been subjected to more effort in realistic depiction from Audubon, from all the bird guys. So the fact that they're fake birds, is I like. It's a wonderful subversive.
That's funny, because I'm working on a project, doing a design project with a nature society. What's it called? Wildlife Refuge Association. And everybody I work with, they're all birders, and they've got their own projects and their own websites with their bird photography. And they're unbelievable. Sort of, how do you catch that bird mid-flight with the feathers like this? And there's this whole culture of nature photography that I'm sort of spoofing.
At the end of the WICMA show a couple of years ago, with all the photographs of the birds, later on I talked to two different groups of people who walked away from that entire show thinking that the birds were real.
Yeah.
And that was a strange moment for me because I didn't know whether to say they're not real, but they loved what you did.
I didn't know. How does she have the patience?
Yeah. Could I ask you another question just about framing versus not framing? Because you have frames on some, you don't have frames on some. Frames are very expensive and all that, so maybe it's economics. But also, what's your experience? Do you like having them up without frames, or ideally would you put the larger ones in frames, or how do you feel about it?
I would like to see them in frames. I just was working until the day before.
Yeah.
So It's also nice to have them not in frames because you can see them better.
Yeah.
No matter what
Yeah.
you do, the frame will interrupt your experience visually a little bit.
It's very different. It's a very different experience, but it's nice in a way having both. Any other questions?
Very.
So people who usually work or known for working in landscapes take their inspiration often from a specific region or whatever. And you had mentioned during the opening that this reminded you of Florida.
Yep.
Now, did that idea come after the painting or before the painting? And are there specific regions you have in mind for some of these landscapes?
Well, the panels are all specific places. So the one in the front window is Lake Michigan, and this is the Atlantic. I was thinking about sort of going to the shore as a kid, and the one behind Rebecca is the Pacific with the really dark ocean, and yeah, the Florida landscape over there. So they're all places I've been, and sort of variations on that really simple landscape, but they're memories. These are all memories, except for the one in the front window was from a drawing. But yeah,
So you are a romantic. Underneath it all, you're
am I a romantic in Cynic's clothing?
Yeah.
Dark